Hey Amanda, alright, so here is your past life spread, and we're going to go to where we are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day, another important day, the death, and the lesson learned. And we'll get hints of time throughout. Actually, we're going to put that away. We're going to Atlantis or Lemuria, which doesn't require the time card. And again, I'm going to relay to you the images and impressions I'm getting, and your job is to make connections where you can from here to your current life, and I'll try to help where I can, okay? Alright, so, like I said, we are at the Atlantis or Lemuria card, and what's interesting is it's more of a feeling of a place that is, it's like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like, I want to say there's water near you, almost like you follow the coastline in a way, but I'm not really sure if it's either Atlantis or Lemuria. I feel like this card comes up sometimes when it's a place that is old and not here anymore, and also kind of legendary. Maybe we've heard the word, like maybe, so it could be Atlantis or Lemuria. I'm just not getting a tug fully towards either one. It's kind of like a dual thing, which is interesting too, because that also what's come up with this card is more like passive energy versus aggressive energy, and I feel like there is this balance of both. And also we're going to be looking at what you did in the majority of your time. This card is the nomad card, so you're moving around a lot, and that might make me understand, it helps me understand why I'm feeling like there's no settled place that's pulling at me. I feel like you're someone that's traveling around a lot. And it's weird because when I was laying this out, the images I was getting more than anything was kind of like impressions of a gypsy kind of life. And I don't know if they had gypsies back then here, but I feel like this is a woman's life. I feel like we're looking at a woman who traveled around a lot with people who were basically constantly on the move. So in your current life, you might be able to relate to that in a way where either one, you have an itch to move around a lot, and moving around a lot, it can be physical, like you might like the idea of living in different places or moving around, traveling a lot, but it may relate to you in a way where it's like moving around as far as like your emotional state or your mental state, where you might feel kind of lost and you're looking for things to anchor to in order to kind of get a footing somewhere. So that's another way it can relate to you as far as that goes. It's also a thing about following the coastline. You might love looking, you might be an ocean girl, okay? But it doesn't mean you're a beach girl. So ocean girl, beach girl, it means like you might be that kind of person that likes looking at the water, like the cliffs. Like maybe, for example, like what's coming to mind is like the cliffs in Ireland. You always see the photos of those cliffs by the water. That's the imagery I'm getting for that. So if that's the kind of thing that you like, if you've seen photos of that or whatever, and it pulls at you, that's how you can relate as well. And on the flip side though, because we're looking at someone who is very, very mobile, in your current life, you could be someone that really wants roots and really wants to settle down and just wants to find that home. And that again can also mean mentally, emotionally, someone who wants to settle emotionally and find roots emotionally and find a home emotionally. So if that speaks to you on any level, great. And if not, that's okay, but that's just how you can make connections. So we're going to go to the first important day. We're getting a war card. And the war card can mean war, like real war, or it can mean internal war. I'm just trying to see what's going on. We have the child card as the relationship involved, and feelings of depression. And what this feels like is, I feel like we're looking at a miscarriage, and I feel like the miscarriage is happening because your people, I feel like there is, because of the lifestyle of moving around a lot, I feel like there's also others like you, and I feel like it's like an ambush or attack or something, but it's not like a whole nation at war with you. It just feels like, it's almost like if there are gypsy, like the idea of gypsies, you know, traveling around in their communities, it's almost like there's two different factions and they're kind of at war, but it's more like they'll attack, Like you have to be on guard. So actually in your current life, you might be someone who feels like you constantly have to be on guard. And that can be physically, but it can also be emotionally. Like you always have like you're always ready to fight, like you're always ready, like you're ready for, you might feel paranoid, like people are ready to pounce on you, people are ready to tell you that you're wrong. Or physically, you might be someone who's in the parking garage and constantly looking over your shoulder because of that paranoia of being ambushed. That's the kind of thing that might stem from here. So we're looking at a day, I feel like because of this attack, I feel like there's like a sudden kind of attack, and it was more like, it's not about hurting people, I feel like it's more about stealing. So I feel like it's more about taking. So in your current life, you actually could be someone that's very possessive about your possessions. It doesn't mean you're materialistic, it would just mean that this person lost things. They lived in a lifestyle where things would be taken, and so in your current life, you could be someone that is very wary of having their things taken or moved or even borrowed. You might not like having people borrow things from you and you don't know why. And it would stem from here, not getting things back. And so on this day, I feel like it was such a surprise and so emotionally taxing. I feel like we see the stress of it get to you in the form of a miscarriage, and I feel like we see the losing of a child, and I feel like it wasn't very far along, but it was like where you just found out about it, so at least you were aware of the pregnancy. And I feel like this depression card is coming in. Of course, I feel like there is a huge sense of loss. So in your current life, honestly, you could have already had a miscarriage or have trouble conceiving, because this kind of thing would carry over on a soul level. At the thought of losing another child, your soul, basically your cell memory would create another miscarriage, because the idea of losing a child is so great that it would carry over in that way, if that makes sense. Like the fear of loss would instigate a miscarriage. And let's see, on the other hand, you could have come back in this life and just wanted to have a family, period. Like that was just it. Like you're just like, I want to have a family. I want to have many kids. So that would make sense as well. So that would make sense as far as like the loss of a child would create a desire for you to have a lot of children. So you see how it can be a connection either way. You also might have a thing about kids in general. You might just be very youth oriented, or you might find them adorable. You might find, not everyone does, but you might just kind of see children as that next generation. Like you might have that very idealistic kind of feeling about children. And if that's the case, it would stem from here as well. Yep. Okay, let's go to the next important day. Here we're seeing a birth, which is interesting, and we're seeing the karmic card. And we're seeing removed and distant feelings. So what's really neat is what's coming through is this karmic relation card is this child that was lost, coming back and being born to you. And it's interesting, the karmic card, because they're doing a dual karma thing for you. So first, their soul comes into this form as the child that is unborn. So being an unborn child has in itself on a soul level taught you lessons. Then this child comes back, the soul comes back into the next body, I guess, the child that's born, and it's teaching you to love and to let go of the loss of itself. It's coming back to teach you to let go of the loss because it was the same soul. So it's really interesting when you think of that lesson that it's teaching you, this child. And I feel like this child is like, this isn't the first time the souls have met. I feel like you go around a lot with this kid. In fact, in your current life, if you do have a child, or if you have a niece or nephew, and you feel like you have a bond with them that's quite strong, I wouldn't be surprised if it was this same person coming back, because there's something about this person being a child and you not being a child at the same time where you can learn lessons from each other. The feelings of removed and distant come in because these are the feelings that you are working on getting over from this. So it's a really, really rough emotional thing for you to even have a child, because you want it so badly because of the loss, but at the same time you have this kid and now you're scared that you're going to mess up and you're going to hurt it, or something bad is going to happen again, that paranoid feeling. And so there's these feelings you're working through of putting walls up even against your own child. Even though you love the child, there's walls up for your own protection. And it's this whole phase and processing, mental processing, that you find yourself going through here, of putting the walls down in order to connect more fully with your child and trying to get through those fears. So we see someone who's really doing a lot of self-work, and in your current life you might find that this is coming up because you're right now going through a transition where you're going through a lot of processing, mental processing, self-work, and you're doing these things because you want to become the best version of yourself. And the more you work on these things, the more blessings you get too. And that's what we see here. It's almost like this is coming up to tell you to not be afraid, or if you do have fear, to work through it and get to that other side of it. Because on the other side of fear is greatness, it's bliss, it's amazing. Not just getting on the other side of a fear, but also learning your own process of getting over a fear, because it's the same process. The only thing that changes is the fear. So once you learn how to get into your own mental, spiritual kind of processing, that is a breakthrough, because then you can work with anything that comes your way. So I feel like if you're looking for a way to get through things on a spiritual level, processing, whatever it is, this is coming up to show you that you've already figured it out. You already know what to do. You just need to take some quiet time and reestablish that relationship you have with yourself, your emotions, your mentality, and realize you've got everything you need in order to push through and move past any fears or obstacles that might be holding you back. All right? So we're going to go to the death here. And here's an accident card. And when I laid that down, what it felt like was a crushing. I feel like you got ran over. I feel like you were crushed. And it's funny because I feel, no, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny, because I feel like the part that was crushed in you, at least the part that was crushed was also your abdominal area. And I feel like it's interesting that you had such issues with the abdominal area in a miscarriage, and then you had a birth. So that's obviously all of this is happening in that area, and then I feel like you were crushed there as well. So if you find in your current life that you do have either trouble with your female area, your cervix, uterus, all that stuff, or stomach issues, digestive issues, just any issues you have in your stomach area that would have to do with either conceiving or digestion, I feel like if that's the case, it would stem from here. And let's see, there's something, also you might have an unusual fear or a trigger when it comes to automobile accidents, or something with like freak accidents. Like you might be paranoid that it would happen to you, and it won't, because we already see it here. It's almost like being brought up to kind of tell you, don't be afraid of this kind of thing happening, because it's already happened, so you've already learned the lesson from it, and you can get past it. And I feel like that's why it would be coming up. But again, just pay attention to any stomach issues, or like, the abdominal area issues. Also breathing issues. If you have breathing issues, it would also stem from being like crushed as well. Breathing issues also actually would relate to issues with expressing yourself, or anything of the throat chakra area. So we're looking at things having to do with your, what's it called, the sacral chakra down here, or the root chakra if you're into chakras at all, and the throat chakra. So keep that in mind as well. So the lesson here, we're looking at, this is like the brain card, using your brain, and it's really interesting because I feel like this, using the brain thing, it kind of feels like it might be like a disconnect, because everything happening here is very physical and emotional. But again, what it comes down to is what you learn after all of this was how to get over your fears. And it was for a child. It was really for yourself and the child and for others. So you might actually find that other people are very motivating for you to grow and to learn more and to become a better person, you might find that you take inspiration and motivation from other people for your own journey, which is really, great if that works for you, whatever works. But it also feels like this is coming up so that you don't place too much emphasis on logic, on your, like, on the mental, on your, I know here we're looking at mental processes, but this is also like a spiritually mental process when it comes to getting over and through obstacles and fears. And here we're looking, I feel like it's coming up to show you that you everything can't be solved just by your brain alone. There has to be different levels going into your problem solving and your decision making, and those levels have to do with emotion and spirituality. And I feel like when this is coming up to show you that the overall balance of all those three things, the brain, the mind, and the heart, basically, if you can, the best way basically to figure things out for yourself is to have these parts of you very balanced. And I feel like if this is coming up, it could be because maybe you emphasize your intellect too much, which of course it's wonderful that you're so smart, but when you place all the emphasis on your intellect to solve your problems, you're not going to find a full resolution because the heart and the soul isn't involved in the decision-making process when it really needs to be involved in every decision-making process you go through. And I feel like that would be coming up as a message for you, that if there are things that you're trying to figure out in your life and you just keep coming to a certain dead end, like you solve so much and then you get to this place and you're like, now what? Like you always like kind of, you just come up to like a certain wall all the time. It would be because your soul is looking for a more balanced approach to the problem, and that balanced approach would include, like, honestly, it would include analyzing your emotions, which is really hard and can be difficult and can be really, emotional, I guess. But it's when you, again, combine your spirituality, your emotional climate, and your mentality and your intellect together, you're going to get the best result because it's so well-rounded. The foundation of the decision will be so well-rounded that the end result is going to turn out better than it's been. Okay? So there's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can find connections, and thanks for letting me read you.